Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carolyn if you are new here, and today I thought that I would do my April wrap-up part 1. I asked in my Instagram story if I should keep doing 2 parts like I did in March or if I should just do one video like most people, and only like 4 of you I think it's subscribed to my YouTube, follow me on Instagram, so I don't even know if that's helpful, but most people said to do 2 parts. And I do like it because then I don't feel like I'm so flustered to like talk so quickly, but I have started doing reading vlogs in the past month, so I've talked about like 3 of these books in a lot of detail in those reading vlogs, so just let me know your thoughts if this is too repetitive and you would just watch like one video. I would, yeah, I welcome all opinions. Please let me know what you think. Okay, so I think that I will begin to talk about books that I haven't already talked about in vlogs. So I'll pick one of my favorites that I have not spoken about in a vlog yet, and that is Pew by Catherine Lacey. So this book, a lot to talk about, but I will just kind of mention the plot. So it is about a stranger, a person that is found by a congregation of a very small religious community. They go into their church one morning and this person is asleep in the pew. So the community calls them pew in place of their name. So this community has that very tight-knit, small-town religious vibes, and kind of Pew, I didn't mention, Pew does not speak. By looking at Pew, you cannot tell what their gender is, their race, their age, and some of the townspeople offer to house Pew and kind of figure out who they are and help them with their Christian charity. And that's spirit of Christian charity. So kind of alongside that plot, there is this kind of foreboding festival, this annual festival that this community partakes in that the entire community is involved in. We don't know what the festival entails, but we know that it is imminent. It is happening in the next few days. So this kind of whole book, if you can kind of tell, has that kind of Crucible, The Lottery by Shirley Jackson vibes, which is fantastic. We've all encountered that before, I'm sure, but what makes this book so special is that it's very right now. Let me explain. So, because Pew is of indeterminable age, race, gender, this book is all about identity. But more specifically, it's about identifying, because Pew is unwilling, unable to place themselves in with any sort of label. So this book is really about when that kind of power to identify yourself and say who you are is kind of taken from you. So that a bigoted person knows how to treat you in terms of their moral compass, if this makes any sense. So for example, okay, so the townspeople have this meeting and one woman says, I think that Pew is a 15-year-old black boy, and they're like, and then another person says, no, I think that Pew must be an 18-year-old white girl, and they're like, they physically cannot, the townspeople cannot function not being able to place Pew because they don't know how to respond to them, to interact with them, and it basically is just highlighting their own bigotry. And so what is so interesting about this book is that we see everything in Pew's perspective. So you would kind of expect that a character that is silent to the outside world, when you're in their head, you would expect to get more information, but we don't get any more information other than what the townspeople get. Pew really kind of acts as almost like a blank canvas that the townspeople are kind of reflecting themselves back on. When the townspeople are around Pew, they kind of get this confessional spirit and they share things with Pew. I kind of mentioned briefly in a vlog that I loved this book because it felt so accusatory of modern American culture, because it really is about kind of this false charity and this kind of showmanship that someone will offer to take in Pew, but up to a certain point. And that it does have this kind of, this tension is building and building and building, and it definitely has a very eerie, small-town religious vibes atmosphere. And if you can imagine, their Christian spirit and their Christian charity soon wears off. And then really the atmosphere of the book is one of the best parts. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I have now been rating books. Also, this edition is beautiful. It just is so smart, this book. Loved it. Okay. And then another book that I have not already spoken about in a vlog is Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. So let me kind of explain this book. So, it is about a young couple, Nadia and Saeed, and basically their home countries are in a state of unrest, and there's a lot of violence and civil war, and it's very dangerous. And in this world, doors, bathroom doors, front doors, whatever, are randomly become portals where you can kind of walk through in your hometown and end up on the other side of the world. And they're random and they just pop up and people can enter and come as they go and come and go as they please. So, bear with me here. I know that that sounds strange, but for me, in my brain, this felt very Jacqueline Woodson, Right at the Bone-esque. And I know you're like, what are you talking about? This book has magic doors. And yes, that's true, but that's the only smidgen of like fantasy sci-fi weirdness, and you know that on the front cover, so I'm not spoiling anything. These fantasy doors are just, they are what they are, they exist in this world. Really, Hamid, I would say, uses these doors as a kind of channel to talk about borders and refugees and nationhood in relation to personhood, about the absurdity of nativist arguments. I'm not doing this book justice, but I did not expect to love a book about magic doors as much as I did. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 star. It was really, really beautifully written, and I think this book has a lot to say in a really kind of interesting package. So I really, 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 really enjoyed this book. Okay. Then another book I have not already talked about, A Separation by Kitamura. So this book is tricky to talk about. It does have a plot. This is about a woman who has been separated from her husband and they haven't told anyone, and he goes missing. He goes down to Greece alone and goes missing. And she basically goes down to Greece to try to find him. So that's our plot, but no kind of explanation of the plot will kind of do this book justice, because this book is all about, I know I hate using this word and I'm sorry I sound so stupid, but this book is really about like the vibe that it creates and kind of the atmosphere and the tension, because this book has so much observation of other people and trying to understand who these people are in relationship to your life and kind of what's going on in their mind, and kind of putting your opinions onto somebody else and kind of, I don't know what I'm saying. So this woman goes down there and she's kind of trying to figure out what happened to her husband, and she's meeting these various people, and she's like obsessed with watching them and kind of scanning the crowd, and her mind is going like a million miles per hour. This book kind of feels very thriller-esque, but it's really about, on the back it kind of talks about violence of all kinds, not just against other bodies but against other minds, kind of talking about kind of the small slights and acts of betrayal and acts of violence that kind of can make up a relationship, and that it doesn't have to be kind of bodily harm, but that these kind of little creeping moments add up to really break people down. Yes, I loved the writing of this book. It kind of kept you going. It's a really, really short book. I in my brain it kind of places between a 3 and a 3.5. I didn't love it, but I really liked the ideas in the writing, and I love that kind of introspective, obsessive, trying to read the room, very tense writing. That made no sense, but I would recommend it. Okay, and then the last book that I've not already spoken about in a reading vlog is The Undocumented Americans by Karla, Cornejo, Villavicencio. So this is a memoir, nonfiction book about the lives of undocumented immigrants in the U.S. So Karla herself is an immigrant, and I think this book kind of sets off from the election of Donald Trump in 2016 and kind of has kind of the perfect mix, in my opinion, of kind of journalistic endeavors and kind of personal relationships and Karla's own life, talking about her parents and her family. So it kind of has a little bit of everything, and it's kind of seamlessly woven together. So I think this book, what it does such a good job of is kind of taking these massive headlines, these news articles that kind of dominated the newsreels for however many weeks, years, and kind of brings them down to kind of place undocumented immigrants at the center. Some examples, the cleanup at Ground Zero, the Flint water crisis, the cleanup of Hurricane Sandy. I think this book was kind of very sharp and very poignant, and some of the most beautiful parts, in my opinion, when Karla was talking about her relationship with her father and her father's kind of disillusionment and just, what's the word? How her father becomes disillusioned with the U.S. and kind of how he's worked his whole life, and kind of this kind of overhanging depression that kind of consumes her father. So I think she does a little bit of everything in this book, but it's such a short book that you can really read this in a day or two, and it's so jam-packed. All the historical context in there. She has real life stories, and she really forms, she was a journalist, and she really talked to all of these people, but she kind of formed very close relationships with these people that she's kind of continued for years, and that really shows in this book. She really cares about all the people that she's interviewing and the people that she's talking about, and she's really shining a spotlight on them. So I didn't rate this book just because I don't really think it's for me to rate, but I think this book is a must-read, so I'm very glad I read it. Okay, now we're getting into the 3 books that I have already talked about in a reading vlog, so if you're over it, I've already talked about it enough, just skip me. So, first, Motherhood by Sheila Heti. So if you watch my reading vlog, there's really not anything more to say other than I fucking loved this book. This is, of course, a memoir nonfiction. Sheila Heti's kind of going up against the idea of motherhood, struggling with it in her own mind about whether to become a mother herself, but really kind of going up against the idea of motherhood and that all women need to be mothers, need to be nurturing, need to be maternal. In my mind, this book really feels like an art installation. Like you go in, you read this book, kind of all your senses are like absorbed by this book. So many things are being thrown at you. Hetty's really holds nothing back. It's like quick, and she's throwing so many ideas at you. But also kind of the writing alone of this book is enough reason to read it. Ideas and kind of introspection and drama alone, drama aside, the writing of this book is brilliant. It's beautiful. It's so captivating. I think this book has something for everyone. So, yes, a real winner to me. Loved it. Okay, next, Clara and the Sun. So again, I've talked about this book in great detail. This is by Ishigruo. I loved Never Let Me Go. I read it very recently, and Steffi actually commented on my vlog where I talked about this video, and she was like, did you just not love Clara and the Sun because you read Never Let Me Go too recently? And I think she's probably right. I just had such high expectations, and kind of Never Let Me Go has kind of made its way into like my subconscious. I'm always thinking about it. So this book is about robots. One robot in particular, an artificial friend named Clara, and she is kind of brought home to this girl Josie's house, and Josie is kind of struggling with certain illnesses. Of course, Ishigruo has those kind of themes that are kind of like gut punchers. They get you really involved very quickly. He's kind of talking about personhood and morality, and are we really as moral as we think we are, and if Josie kind of not genetically engineered, Josie is kind of engineered in a way that she has no limit to her love. So I loved all the ideas that this book was bringing forward. I just didn't connect in the same way as I did to Never Let Me Go. And just my expectations were too high. Like, I did to myself, it's not Ishigruo's fault. But for me, I placed this book at like a 3.5. I just didn't connect to Clara, and I think what made me love Never Let Me Go is that those characters are all so vulnerable, and they're so innocent, and you just really want the best for them, that when kind of these horrible things happen, it's like that's why it's so gut-wrenching. And it just wasn't kind of like this all-consuming thing, which not all books can be. I get it. But those were my expectations. So if you have another Ishigruo that you would recommend that I read next, because I really love his writing, I will say that. And like a 3.5 is still a very good rating. It just, Never Let Me Go is top tier literature in my mind. But I love the ideas. Anything Black Mirror-esque, I mean, I'm there for it. So that is Clara and the Sun. And then last book for this part 1 April wrap-up is, of course, my darling, My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Atesha Moshfegh. So again, whole reading vlog dedicated to this book, so go watch that if you haven't. But this is about a young woman who is very privileged and kind of gross and obnoxious, and she is struggling. Kind of a lot of things, bad things happening in her life, and she decides to take a lot of pills to basically black out a year of her life, go to sleep, and kind of wake up refreshed is her plan. So let's just get it out there. I loved this book, 5 out of 5. This is a perfect book for me. It was dark, disgusting, gross, hated the character, was obsessed with the character. You want to know what she's doing, what she's thinking at all times. I think Moshfegh is kind of the queen of character writing. I'm currently reading another Moshfegh because that's how much I loved this book. This book definitely felt relatable in a way that was unwelcomed and disturbing. I will say that. But I just think it's so impressive. This is not going to make sense, but it's so impressive how much character Moshfegh was able to cram into such a claustrophobic, confined space. Like, our narrator is not doing much, you know what I mean? Like, she's in her apartment, taking pills, sleeping, trying to, like, sleep her life away. There's not a lot of action going on, but this book was so bizarre and so brilliant. I stopped functioning, I'm sorry. Loved this. So those were all of the few books that I've read in the first half of April. So thank you so much for watching, and please, if you've read any of these or if you're just interested in them, comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Yes, and also please let me know if I should keep doing part 1, part 2 wrap-ups, or just one at the end of the month and you don't need to hear me babble on what books I've already talked about in a vlog, because I understand that. But yes, I am recording a reading vlog, so hopefully that will be up in the next few days. And yes, I just really appreciate you watching, and if you have not subscribed already, please do so if you feel so inclined. And yes, I will see you very soon with another video. Bye everyone.